Wow,
I'm in Brussels and
Brussels,
it's just fairly warm.
fairly warm. Okay, here in London it's overcast. I could say it's been warm today. Yes, yes. So, dear listeners, welcome to the show. The aim of the show is, as you know, is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrusheen. And we have a topic every week, a new topic. The new topic for this week is keep the half of your thoughts pure. I'll say that again. Keep the half of your thoughts pure. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abdrusheen is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I would like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdrusheen. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for discussion tonight is keep the half of your thoughts pure. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. And I believe Mena has just joined us. Mena, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome
Good
to the
evening,
show.
everyone.
How are you doing, and where are you, and how's the weather where you are?
Yeah, I'm in the heartland, so just in the middle of the world, basically.
Okay, welcome.
It's what yeah, it is warm. It was warm today,
Warm.
and yeah, and quite a nice weather.
Good. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
So, yes, Gregory, as usual, we have always questions for you. So, tonight, the title is Keep the Hearth of Your Thoughts Pure. And people might be wondering, how did we pick such a title? Well, this title or phrase is actually a quote or some words from the Grail message, which Abdushin, the author, mentions quite a few times in the Grail message. In fact, the full quote would be, "Keep the hearth of your thoughts pure, and then you'll be happy. You'll have peace and be happy." But we didn't want to make it that long, so we wanted to focus on that part. So, Gregory, every teaching, when you look at these words, Gregory, you get this feeling of sensing of goodness. Do good things. That's how I know it talks about thoughts here, but so immediate sensing of it is, having pure thoughts. It's like thinking good things, and this is like every teaching or every religion or spiritual teaching talks about being good. So let's look into that. Why is that, Greg? Why is that so? Why is it always telling us to be good?
Well, it's quite interesting that such obvious questions arise in this discussion. One key thing must be mentioned first, and that is man should understand that he himself has arisen out of nature, or man has come into existence through the laws of nature or the laws of creation for its own personal development. And being good only means that his activity or his or her activities must be in accordance with the laws through which the human spirit or the personality, came into existence. So it's not a matter of comparing one person to the other, but understanding that goodness has to do with one striving in accordance with the laws which one has come into existence. And therefore, any teaching or religion, or that is also science, that does not stress this goodness in accordance with the laws of creation must itself have a hole in it, means it is not consistent with that which we know. Because what would then happen, one person will say, "Oh, I'm being good to you because you're my child," or that's not what it meant. So it has to be goodness, that which brings benefit not only to the individual, but to one's neighbor in accordance with the laws of creation.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. And I just straight away, when you were talking in responding to that question, my thinking was that goodness. Sorry, I'm losing a little bit what you said, but basically, what you are pointing to is that we came through the laws of creation, the natural laws, and when you say that, does that mean we are naturally good, or or we have a tendency to be naturally good, or maybe is that not correct?
You are saying the tendency to be naturally good. That tendency is always there. But once you understand that one of the key features of the human personality is that of free will. That means it's able to decide which path it needs to take. And very sadly, from the results which we have here on earth, one can find that these decisions have been very narrow or selfish. So, because the human spirit has a free will, many a time, due to a lack of maturity, it makes decisions which turn out to harm its fellow human spirits along the line.
Thank you for that. Mina, did you want to come in?
No, I'm okay. That is a clear explanation. I hope my voice is clearer this time.
Yes,
Yeah,
I can hear loud and clear. Very good.
yeah.
Okay, so okay, let's move a little bit further. Again, to remind the listeners, the topic for tonight is keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. And I think the words thoughts are clear and pure. The word pure is clear, but maybe the hearth may not be so clear. So, Gregory, what do we mean? What is meant by that word hearth? Because hearth, you normally think of a fireplace. That's in fact, when I looked in the dictionary, that says the bottom of the fireplace, hearth. And here we're talking about thoughts. Keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. So what? Obviously, we don't mean a fireplace there. What does that mean? Keep the hearth. The word hearth. Sorry, what does the word hearth mean in this phrase?
Well, if looking at it from an intuitive point of view, first look at the word hearth, and you mentioned the fireplace. The key word there is fire. And the fireplace is that which sends out heat to warm the house. Now, when fire is mentioned, is that which activates, just as heat help us to generate warmth, that which generates warmth. Now, the heart, which is referred to, that which now generates warmth, is the spirit, the inner core that sends out the radiation to warm not only the soul, but also the physical body. For when the soul incarnates, by the soul, one is talking about the covering that surrounds the human spirit. So when it incarnates at the time of birth, at the middle of pregnancy, the body is activated. It is taking over the body. So the heart is that which sends out the warmth or the fire. And during the life on earth, that particular personality keeps the warmth going until it gets to an age where it needs to sever its connection with the physical body and goes its way. So the heart has always been that which sends out warmth. And in this particular scenario, or this particular case, it is the spirit. So it is said, keep the hearts of your thoughts pure.
Yeah.
The
Thank,
heart being that which generates the warmth.
thank you so much for that. This is a really vivid picture. This hearth being the fire, uh, and warmth, as you say, it gives out warmth, and obviously, um, it's an uplifting feeling to have warmth. It's and then you can think it the other way around. If you send out cold, you want to harm somebody, you feel like you're cold. People call you cold-blooded. If you, I mean, I'm talking worse than that, when people actually maybe even kill, or
Okay.
that way. So it really so it's a very good picture that you've given there. That the warmth. Okay.
Can I give a perspective?
Okay. Yeah. Go on, Mena. Go on.
Yeah. It does say, the floor off the bottom of a fireplace. And in regard to your thoughts, I want to consider of this as, the resolution which you make in, the resolution you make out of your thoughts should be pure. I don't know if you see it that way.
Yeah.
The resolution, actually, because at the bottom, the floor at the bottom of a fireplace, you mainly have the ashes, and
Yes.
that is actually what has burnt out of the could be wood or the coal. That is what you have at the bottom. So, and if the I call it, these forms, which are the ashes of your thoughts, could be your resolutions, your.
So can I put sorry to intervene there. What about the word foundation? Keep the foundation of your thoughts, hearth being the foundation of the, we talked about the fireplace, but let's say the foundation of the fireplace. So keep the foundation pure, and then everything that comes from your foundation will be, will result in good things.
Yeah, the foundation itself will not be the final resolution. That is why I want to see.
All right.
I want to think. Yeah, I want to think of it as, what. Yeah, the foundation may be the surroundings. You could be.
Yeah.
You could be right as well, but let us.
So you're saying resolution.
Conceive of it. Yes, let's conceive of it as, as what makes up that resolution. What constitutes your resolution, your final resolution, in regards to any thoughts you conceive of.
Mm-hmm. Another way you could put it is the state you're in.
Yes, exactly.
So keep. You said resolution, but we could say keep in a state of purity, or of sending out pure thoughts.
All right.
Yeah, sounds yes.
Could be,
yeah. I mean, we are exploring the subject, so it's good that it's good to sort of reflect on it. Right. Thank you for that. Gregory, did you want to come in at all?
Yes,
I thought the first question was based on the hearth.
The word hearth, yes. What does it mean?
Yes. So the picture, the intuitive picture, was that which generates warmth. So, and in, like you said, most of the time in cold countries, you have the hearth. That's where the fire is. That's what's. So one should hold that picture as the first impression. Subsequently, one will take the whole expression, but one does not want to jump to taking the whole phrase because it means a lot.
That's true. Thank you, Gregory, for bringing that back to that point. So yes, so we did ask first about what is the meaning of hearth, and then Mena, you talked about the actual phrase, keep the hearth of your thought. So you were talking about that, the meaning of the whole statement. So I now got that. Yes, thank you for that. Okay, so the next thing I think for me is, how do we do that? How do we keep the heart? Well, another way, yeah, keep the hearth. Let's keep it to the phrase, actual phrase. How do we keep the hearth of your thoughts pure? Is there some technique, or Men has talked about having a resolution, So how do we go about that, Gregory?
Again, that's a very important question. The expression, keep the hearth of your thoughts pure, is only an external expression. Each expression conveys a meaning. On the other hand, each expression has an impression. It is the meaning when we refer to the impression. So the question which each person must ask themselves, what picture arises deep within us when we hear that phrase, keep the hearth of your thoughts pure? The word purity or pureness means the form of being clean. So when purity is considered, and one is now saying the heart is that which generates the heat and activates, it only means keep your spirit pure. So when one hears keep your spirit pure, the question is how? Again, one must go back to the intuitive meaning of keep the hearts of your thoughts pure. The picture which comes straight to one's spirit can only be found in the words of Christ, which means watch and pray. It is an activity. So, keeping the hearts of one's thought pure is only an admonition to watch and pray. Therefore, I will read out a bit of what Christ meant when he used the word watch and pray. This is taken from the lecture Watch and Pray from the work In the Light of Truth, the Grail Message. It says, watch and pray is a figurative rendering of the admonition to keep the ability to perceive intuitively on the alert. That is, to keep the spirit active. Spirit in its true sense, and not the activity of the brain. For the way the living human spirit expresses itself is only and solely through the intuitive perception. In no other way does the spirit of man, that is, the original kernel, which evolved into his true ego in the course of its wandering through subsequent creation, becomes active. Watch and pray is therefore nothing less than the demand to refine and strengthen man's ability to perceive intuitively, which is equivalent to vitalize the life of the spirit. The only eternal value man possesses is the spirit, which alone can return to the paradise from which it issued. it must return there, either matured and self-conscious, or again in an unconscious state, either welcome to the light as a living ego, which has become useful in creation, or as a dismembered and dead ego if it has proved itself useless. So, keeping the hearts of your thoughts pure, the inner meaning means watch and pray.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gregory. That's really, how can I say, deep meaning to what these words are. Keep the heart of your thoughts pure. And
Okay.
Mena, you want to come in?
Yes, I want to comment. Yeah, can we give a little clarification as to, when we use the word spirit? Because
What
you
is-
would want to conceive of the human being as a spirit itself, as a
Okay.
spirit gem who is, undergoing development. The
Okay.
spirit itself cannot give rise to a spirit. What the spirit exercises is evolution, and that evolution is, what we are asking to be kept pure. I don't know if that clarifies the point you're making.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
Gregory, do you
it
want?
doesn't clarify the point. What one stressed is that keep the hearts of your thoughts pure is only an expression. The impression which forces that expression is watch and pray. And here in this scenario, the discussion is on that which is spiritual. That means the inner core of the individual that has developed itself so far into a personality.
Yes.
It is in their place that which decisions have decisive returns on the human spirit. That is what is discussed here, not basically the activity of the brain.
Yeah. Okay.
Mena, do you want to say anything on that?
Well, the activity of the brain and the activity of the spirit, both are being asked to be kept pure, because we're talking about the final resolution of your decision. It could be an intellectual decision, it could be a spiritual evolution. Both should be kept pure in order for you to give out that which resonates with the truth.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, what I can see, obviously, you can't have incompatibility. One part of us is pure, and
Yeah.
something else.
Well,
Like say,
yes,
you have, let's say, a
yeah.
good thought, but you
Yeah.
act in a, let's say, not in a pure way or not in a good way. Yeah, that's an inconsistency. So,
Yeah.
of course, yes, they must align. I fully
They must align. Yeah.
I agree with that. So yes, okay, yes. I mean, what we can say is we need to always remember, as Greg has mentioned, we are a spirit
Yeah.
on this earth. We are wearing these a number of layers.
Yeah.
We have talked about the soul, and of course, we also have our physical body. So each of these layers, there's a like we put something out in each. We have our spirit, as Greg has mentioned, and through the intuition we express ourselves through the spirit, with our spirit, and then on the earth we do physical actions, and also we have these thoughts. They are also like an expression of us, and then of course we also have the soul body as well. So maybe, Greg, we should look at that. Talk about what our thoughts. Are thoughts something spiritual, or are they earthly? Can you explain that?
First, one must look at the different categories. The real category is that of the spirit, which expresses itself through intuitive perception. One particularly chose the word real because there is continuity. The other category are the thoughts that have arisen from the human intellect. Those are temporal. They do not have much power, or they live on borrowed power. Since the human intellect is only functional through its life here on earth, from birth till death, it is therefore temporal. Whereas those that impression that have arisen from the spirit are not tied to basically to the conception of space and time in the earthly arena. And that is why one was considering that of the spirit as the genuine ones, whereas that of the intellect not so genuine because it is temporal and is also limited to the earthly conceptions of space and time. So one has to determine which one one should, rely on. However, the natural order of things is that the intuition or the intuitive perceptions that have arisen from the spirit, they appear first. And the earthly intellect, which has its seat on the human brain or frontal brain, then takes these impressions and make them earthly, such that many a person is able to understand. However, what has happened here on earth is that the activities of the intellect have overshadowed, or man has allowed the activity of the intellect to overshadow that of the intuitions which assail it. And therefore, you find that there is so much indecision or there is so much confusion because it is so temporal. The decisions which man then follow or the paths which man then take are very temporal. They don't go far enough. They are very short-sighted.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that explanation. You just see how wide this field is of, spirit and thoughts. So, dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. I'll say it again. Keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. You can join in the discussion with any question or comments. If you're in UK, you can contact us on this number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And just to add, if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. Now, Mena, did you want to say something?
No, I think he made a very good analogy of we rise this differentiating the intellectual evolution vis-a-vis the spiritual evolution. That one is just temporal, while a spiritual evolution could be long-lasting, could look into different aspects of living and could be far-reaching than just a mere intellectual decision. That
Yes.
was very good because most of the decisions we make nowadays, is just to what could just satisfy our immediate existence, and that's why most of the things we do are just short-lived. They don't have any lasting value. I like that analogy you made. Thank you very much, Greg.
Now, what I want to ask you, Gregory, I will say it's very hard to be pure or have pure thoughts all the time. So, okay, maybe, yeah, I don't want to ask that question straight away. So, basically, can we, is there a way, I mean, we said here, keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. So, are we expected, Gregory, to keep these thoughts pure all the time? Or is there room for, let's say, deviation? Let's say, not, is it, can we control the thoughts somehow that we can be always thinking pure? Or it doesn't work like that? How does it,
When that expression was put forward, keep the hearts of your thoughts pure. One made it very clear, it's only an expression. The impression, which is the meaning, is watch and pray. Watch in the sense of the alertness of the spirit, not of the intellect as such. Keep that ability of being alert in spirit. And that ability, as long as one maintains it, to always pick things intuitively, even the expression itself, which is keep the hearts of your thoughts pure, which now translates to watch and pray. It only means that whatever comes our way, one should strive to see what lies behind it, what intuitive perception lies behind it. Only when we keep practicing that and learning the lessons can we now take the lessons or the warnings, because the spirit is activated, is awake, and the message is sent from out of the outer universe, from all impressions that come from on high. We can now put them into activity, which is prayer. Many a time, implementing the sensing which we have is a prayer of thanksgiving, just as you have in the arts with many a person who composes music, who does some kind things to others. That is a fulfillment. The cycle becomes complete. So whatever expressions you have that strike you, one should strive to get the intuitive picture. Getting the intuitive picture means being alert in spirit and after having gotten the intuitive picture, put it into practice. That is prayer. And that is what is demanded of the human spirit.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Gregory. What you,
Yeah. Can,
Mena,
can
you want?
I?
Go on, Mena.
Yes. That is a good analysis as well. But one thing we should be careful not to do is to undermine the intellect. The intellect, when you talk about to watch and pray, there's no way the spirit can watch without the abilities of the intellect, of the head, the eyes. So the spirit gives command to the intellect to be alert, and whatever impression the intellect gets receives, it sends back to the spirit to interpret. So how do I interpret this, or how do I go about this impression? And it gets results. So look, act in X Y way, or act in that's how they relate. So they work together, not necessarily that one undermines the other. I think they both work together to actually give the human being that fullness of decision making, that fullness in decision making. I stand to be corrected anyway. Gregory?
Gregory, do you want to
It,
say anything?
it is the spirit that counts. The physical body is only an instrument. As long as the spirit is not indolent in its activities, you will find that the human body is able to comply. Consider the case of an artist that is able to draw from the impressions that have assailed it in the case of music, and implementing what it has sensed intuitively. The physical body is only an instrument for the fulfillment. True that the physical body is able to now get impressions from the outside and send them back to the spirit through the back brain. But most of the time, that is not the case. And that is why humanity is in a quagmire. We now have brain cripples. That is, many decisions are made with the frontal brain. It means things are unable to go from the frontal brain to the back brain and to the spirit.
Yeah.
Because the spirit itself is not active enough and has allowed the impressions or the activities of the frontal brain to take over.
Yes.
No one is diminishing the human intellect or the physical body.
Yeah.
But we should not forget the cooperation is only for a limited period. So the admonition to keep the hearts of your thoughts pure is not only for man in his earthly body, but also for those who have departed here, the earthly sphere. For the spirits must always be watchful and must always be prayerful. So these go hand in hand. So the explanation is not tied to man on earth. For if it is to be of benefit to the inner man, then it must apply here on earth and to the human personality. And even when the human personality has dropped the physical body, it also applies. It must be universal. It must be always until the human spirit gets back home as a self-conscious personality. That admonition to keep the hearts of the thoughts pure, which now is translated to watch and pray, holds for all times.
Thank you so much for that, Gregory. What I can see you're
yeah.
saying, just let me say this a bit, Mena.
Okay, go
Yeah,
on.
just basically what I'm seeing there is there's the spirit, and then on the earth, the spirit is, you know, encompassed by the body, you can say. And obviously, you have to do things on, just like Mena has been talking about. We have to use our intellect and things like that and work in harmony. Now, in this modern world, you see people are talking about stress and, you know, let's say worries and work-life balance and so many things that people are dealing with. And what I noticed, Gregory, you're focusing really on the spirit, pretty much only on the spirit. And then from what I can see is when you do that, everything else will fall into place. So, I mean, on this earth, we see many people doing sort of different activities to release the stress and things like that, you know, meditation, you could even say jogging or even shopping, and it sounds a bit funny, but, you know, just trying to find a way to have a bit of peace by distracting themselves into other things to clear their heads, you know, with whatever thoughts and daily stresses that they're going through. So, what I want to ask you on that is when people do these practices like meditation or whatever activity it is, would you say that is not needed and we just don't need to, you know, have such things? We can just focus with our spirit and everything will just, you know, all the stresses and whatever will just fall away.
The forms which many individuals use to attain spirituality are manifold and different. There are some who will prefer to listen to a piece of music. There are some who prefer to go to the forest. There are some who insist on yoga. There are some who insist on fasting. Whatever method is used, one should always remember that there must be cooperation between the physical body and the spirit. The problem has always been one-sidedness, where so much effort is put on that which is physical, in the sense that some people now decide to fast and deprive the physical body that which it needs for it to function properly, to balance such that it can radiate. Its blood radiation will be balanced such that the harmony between body and spirit is there. There are some who, on hearing this, decide to take to drugs.
Yes.
They take to drugs thinking or considering that it will help them to silence the intellect because they wish to have quick results. So it depends on the personality. But the only advice one may give in these matters is for many to focus on simplicity and not to get involved in things which will confuse them. Confusion only comes from the human intellect, and the sort of stress which they have only arisen out of the human intellect. For if they had listened to the intuition, then different paths would have been followed. But that's most of the time is not the case, because many want the shortest possible route, and you'll find they become one-sided.
Thank you again, Gregory, for giving that picture. That we always need to look at the big picture, really, in every situation, and not get bogged down in this or that, and then become one-sided, as you said. Mena, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, I do agree. But as much as we would like to condemn, any form of, means of keeping the spirit awake, not everything is entirely wrong, because sometimes you could, do a little bit of fasting, and you could, become lighter, and your spirit becomes more active. I mean, people do that, in order to regain that spiritual control of their essence, their human essence. And then the same with drugs as well. People, will take to smoking in order to, become more spiritually alert. Well, I don't blame them if they do that. But the one thing I would say, look, if you begin to cultivate an overbearing, you become overindulgent in these activities, it becomes one-sided and harmful. That's my contribution to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, at least sometimes you could go without food. Look, if I'm running late, I go without food. So there's no, I don't consider that anything harmful. Yeah.
Actually, I didn't think Gregory was condemning anything. He's just saying, if I'm Greg, I shouldn't really speak for you, but do you want to come in at all? I don't think you were condemning anything. You're just saying, just beware that don't become one-sided in one of those, let's say, whichever practice you use, or whichever the number of practices that there are, maybe you apply them, number of them. Just don't get stuck on one, as if that will, it's like, that's like holding on to something like a crutch, that this is going to help me every time that I'm stressed out or something like that. So, Gregory, do you want to come in at all?
I think you have explained these things very carefully. For us to make progress, one takes the steps bit by bit. The idea is not to go into too many details. For doing that, one will lose the focus. And one should not forget that our main aim is to introduce many to the walk in the light of truth, so that they themselves will find the opportunity to examine it. So at best, we can only give tokens or pointers and say, look, this is what we have found, but not to give as much details as may strike us at any moment. For there is so much for man to be engaged in, and in such a manner that once the spirits burst into life, there will be very little distraction until we have a purified intellect. And of course, many things, many decisions will change, and one will be able to decide on that which has lasting value rather than temporary values. Like if you have a toothache, you might take some painkillers to help you for some time. But if you now start relying on painkillers for the rest of your life, then there is a problem.
Thank you for that example, Gregory, and answer, because that really illustrates, the situation. This is how we can look at this in a very clear manner. So thank you for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrusheen. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or would like some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. I'll say it again, keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. And if you want to join in with any questions or comments, the number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, I know you mentioned expression and impression, and I was sort of seeing things that the spirit expresses itself, and it also receives impression. And then another thing came into my mind, that we act in a passive way, or we can act in a passive way, or we can act in an active way, and so I wanted to ask you, is this spirit meant to sort of be active, and or is it meant to be passive, or is it meant to be using both ways? How we are supposed to function? Should we just make some, say we want to do this or we want to do that? We just make a decision somehow, and then that's an active way, or are we meant to receive guidance, sort of stay calm and wait for guidance before we sort of move and make? I don't want to use the word decision, but before we take a decision, receive guidance first and then make the decision what we're going to do, follow it or not follow it.
Can I quickly chip in? The spirit has to be alert at all times. But Gregory can carry on from there. Sorry.
Okay. Sure. So Gregory, so let me just say the question again. So basically, should the spirit act in an active way, or in a passive way, or is it both? And in a way, what's meant to how do we do that? Is it it's a lot of questions really. So let me just ask you first that only. What should the spirit act only in a passive way, or an active way, or both?
It is the spirit that acts. If, however, the spirit is not that active due to indolence, the intellect now assumes a superior role. That superior role is what causes the confusion, for its activities will be on very short term, very temporal. But for the spirit that is active, many decisions will turn out to be right. A simple example, the composer Mozart lived not for very long, but one can see the compositions that he brought forward. So many of them. That gives the impression of an active spirit, which compositions were done not 3 months ago, not 10 years ago, but hundreds of years ago. The impressions he received, he passed them down. And those things are still as current. Such, that is how it's meant to be. If, however, he did not do that, then the compositions would have been so temporary that they would have been swept away. So the question which each personality must ask themselves, do I want to make very temporary decision which is based on the second or on the hour or on the day? Or do I want to make decisions which transcends the earth life of one? So it is the spirit. If the spirit is not indolent, is able, through its perception, it is like we have a perception which is able to pick the waves from the outer universe. Here we are in our discussions. I am here in Brussels. There you are in London. Through the discussions we have, through the antenna which are able to transmit over distances, you are automatically able to hear me. Or would you have preferred we use simple loudspeakers, which is based on the local sound, such that we put loudspeaker upon loudspeaker, or or town crier upon town crier until you get to Brussels? One has to make a decision. That which transcends space and time, the local space and time, turns out to be more permanent than the local things which we are discussing. So it is the spiritual decision that is decisive. For when you observe very carefully, many a person that has traveled widely in order to make decisions, that personality reflects. For he himself might have sown seeds in different countries and would not want to make decisions that will jeopardize some of the things he had planted in different countries. Whereas those who are in one place many times will just say they only care for what they are able to perceive, what they are able to see in their nearest neighborhood, and their decisions are local. So, in essence, it is the spirit that man should strive to awaken through its activity. And I have to go back. That is why it is given the strong impression, watch, which has to do with the inner perceptiveness of the spirit, to be able to pick out many an impression. Those impressions which are not in accordance with the laws of creation, is able to push them aside. Whereas other impressions which will bring benefits, benefits such like you will have in medicine, benefits like you have in technology, benefits that you have in the arts, is able to perceive these things, hold on to them, and ask the intellect to assist in implementing, whereas the intellect can only, at best, look at the local material. So the ability to perceive intuitively stands out. And it's not sufficient just to perceive and hold it. One has to make use of that which has been perceived. So there is more to it. And that is why one will advise many a listener to look at or to examine the lecture, watch and pray. Only through that can man be alive in creation. Else, that personality is not alive in creation.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for that picture. Really clear and alive. Let's say, what you've described there. So good. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Can I quickly add that when the expression "watch and pray" doesn't mean you should go into this prayer mood all day, all night, wakekeeping and all that. I think it's giving it a different interpretation, which we should follow. And we should also understand the impression which Gregory is trying to echo is that the impressions from the five senses go to the intellect, and the intellect sends it to the back brain, which is the seat of the spirit, which interprets it, sends it back to the brain, and then it administers what the spiritual impressions have been, or interpretations have been given back into the outer world. So that is how they are to function. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that explanation, Gregory.
Thank you as well, Mena, for your contribution. Just to say, the words you just spoke, it was a little bit faint, but I think we still heard them. So just make sure you're near to the microphone when you just so we can hear every word. So thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. Now, I know we don't like to talk about politics, but a lot of things are going on at the moment, especially in Britain, with Brexit, as I'm sure everybody who's into those things are listening. And it seems like, everybody's got their own impression of what is going on, and they are quite differing impressions. And it's like there's a loss of trust in when somebody says something, they think there's something else going underneath it. I mean, the words we are saying is keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. So it's like you say something, that's what you mean. I know we're talking about thoughts here, but before we say the words, we've had the thought already. So my question about this, Gregory, would be, can we tell from when people speak words, what is really behind these words? Because because you can't see these thoughts, Gregory, isn't it? You can't see them, and the words may not match what actually they're thinking. Because you said keep it pure, meaning you do what you say, or you mean what you say, and you think that way as well. But in these times, you're not really sure if people mean what they say. And I don't mean on one particular side. It can be both sides, any side really. You just don't know who's telling a lie. I mean, let's say 80% they're telling the truth, what they mean, but then some part may not be. and you don't know which one is true and which one is not true. It's quite a, I mean, you talked about this word confusion, and you think in this matter, it's very easy to get confused because, as I say, people are mixing. It appears so that people, not every word is the true word. You can't really trust that that is absolutely true what they say. So, Greg, is there a way where we can really see the, I don't like the word too much lies, but when you can spot this, where the words don't really match their thoughts or their real, maybe the word thought is too weak. I mean, really the intention, you know, what exactly is the intention of the speaker when he speaks these words? Is there a way to spot that?
Of course there is. When it comes to that which is of the Spirit, where true meaning will be relied upon, of course there is. One will take an expression from the work in the light of truth, where it is written for your guidance, the last paragraph. Therefore, awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through inflexible weighing and examining. Each word and each expression and whatever many say, these are expressions. Each personality must strive to understand the spiritual connotation. Many strive to hide behind their words. But if you do not examine, how would you know whether it is true or false? Moreover, one should not just examine with the intellect. Doing that, man can easily be deceived. But for that of the Spirit, it is near impossible. For as one practices examination of whatever expression is put out there to get the inner meaning, as one starts with very simple expression, before too long, each person becomes convinced because he or she has been weighing not only with the intellect, but also with the spirit, such that when further challenges come, is able to overcome it. There, if one again goes back, watch, which calls for the inner ability to be on the alert. One may also add that even in politics, where people say what they say is not what they mean, and what they mean is not what they say, it means the listener has to be doubly watchful in examining whatever is thrown out there, whether it be politics, whether it be science, whether it be medicine. Everything must be examined. That is the new which we are entering into, such that whoever then comes across our path, whether it's a politician or not, one is able, to a large extent, able to make a decision, which decision is to protect the individual such that he or she is not misled. Again, by their activities, we shall know them, not only in politics, but also the efforts which each individual puts in its examination. That is what helps it, or many others, to distinguish whether he, the listener, has been active or not. So, whatever comes across one's path, one should not fight shy to strive to understand the intuitive meaning and make decisions. Of course, initially it will be hard, but little by little, starting from a simple basis, before too long, one is able to strengthen oneself such that is unable or is no longer afraid of a fall.
Thank you so much again, Gregory, for your reply there. Mena, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, that's a good explanation. I think everyone should go by that. By their fruits you shall know them. It's clear and simple. Yeah.
Thank you. When I began the show, I said this topic, the title we picked is Keep the Hearth of Your Thoughts Pure, but which is from the Grail Message. It's a word from the Grail Message, and it's not the full words. And I wanted to pick say something from, read something out from the Grail Message, really. And the thing is, when I look at what I want to read, it looks like it's going to be a very long read, and I don't want to do that right now. I'm just saying, okay, what I'm going to say, I'm just going to read a short section, but I'll just give the reference where I'm reading from. So this is in the lecture of the Grail Message, in the lecture number 12, called The First Step. And just to give you a bit of context, it talks about thoughts there. In fact, I'm going to read this one first, as Gregory already quoted it actually. By their works ye shall know them. This saying of Christ is primarily intended for all readers of my message. By their works means their activity, and that is by their thinking and deeds in their daily life on earth. Your deeds also include your speech, not only your actions, for speaking is action, and the effect of which you have hitherto underestimated. Even your thoughts are included here. And I'll just continue a little bit more. Men are in the habit of saying that the thoughts are free. By this they wish to imply that they cannot be held accountable on earth for their thoughts, because these are on a level which is inaccessible to human hands. Therefore they often play with thoughts in the most careless way, or better expressed, they play in thoughts. I'll just read that one again. Therefore they often play with thoughts in the most careless way, or better expressed, they play in thoughts. Unfortunately, often a very dangerous game, in the light-hearted illusion that they can emerge from it unharmed. But here they err, for thoughts too belong to the world of gross matter, and must in all circumstances also be redeemed in it before a spirit becomes capable of swinging itself freely upwards, once it has severed the connection with its earthly bodies. Therefore, seek at all times to swing, even with your thoughts, in the sense of my message, in such a way that you desire only what is noble, and do not lower yourselves because you imagine that nobody can see or hear it. Thoughts, words, and all visible deed belong to the realm of gross matter in this creation. I think I'm going to continue till the quote that I would like to read. So, thoughts operate in the world of fine gross matter, words in the world of medium gross matter, and visible actions take form in the world of coarsest, that is densest, gross matter. These three kinds of your activity are gross material. But the forms of all three are closely connected with each other, Their effects are interwoven. What this implies for you, how incisive and decisive its effect often is in the course of your existence, you cannot estimate all at once. It means nothing else than that also a thought, automatically working on according to its nature, can strengthen a homogeneous type in the world of medium matter, and thereby producing more powerful forms. Likewise, then, deducing from this, it again continues to work on within this intensification, and arises in a visible active form in the coarsest world of matter, without you yourself seeming to be directly concerned with it. It comes as a shock to know this, when one realizes how superficial and careless these earthmen are in their thinking. Thus, without knowing it, you participate in many a deed perpetrated by one or other of your fellow men, simply because he has received the intensification in the way I just explained to you. It became capable of driving him to the crudest perpetration of something that had hitherto slumbered within him, which previously he had always merely toyed in his thoughts. Thus, many a person on earth very often looks with disapproval upon some action of one of his fellow men, angrily repudiating and condemning it, and yet he is partially responsible for it before the eternal laws of God. In this, someone who is a complete stranger to him may be involved, and it may concern a deed which he himself would never have committed in the realm of coarsest matter. Think yourselves deeply into such happenings for once, and you will then all the more understand why I call you in my message. Keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. By so doing, you will bring peace and be happy. So, dear listeners, I really can only recommend to you
Exactly.
to pick the Grail message.
Yeah.
This beautiful, you'll discover some beautiful things here and realize the depth of how this world that we live in actually works. It's much bigger than we think, and the effects of it, we only tell you, as Gregory keeps saying, tokens. But when you see it, what it says here, you will realize it's something. When you pick it up and realize that's how big the reality is, you will take a different you'll see it differently and act differently. And so we can only urge you to pick a copy of this Grail message and discover these things for yourself.
They should, I mean, listeners should also remember that the author himself does not recommend people quoting out of the Grail message. He wants you to make that effort. That we take the risk. That Sar takes the risk to give you quotes. Is I think.
Yes, I mean,
yeah,
I
it's
was, yes,
yeah.
thank you for pointing it out. Yes, thank you.
It's something that he is taking the risk on his own back, but it may not prevail for too long. The only thing is to point you in the direction that this is a work he has discovered which could really benefit you. It's up to you to make the effort to go for it or leave it. The choice is yours. I mean, the way life treats you, you dance accordingly.
Yes, thank you for your advice there. Yes, I actually didn't have the intention to read that whole section, but I felt if I were to just quote a small bit, it would not really land for people. I really felt it was needed to give a bigger background. But yes, the ideal thing is, as you have said, is really you pick up, listeners, please, if you want to know what is the Grail message and what's in there, then you just get a copy for yourself. There's just no way around that. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so Gregory, I talked about happiness in that quote there. So we find the question I would like to ask you: we find true happiness is achieved only when we apply this saying, which I've just said: keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. Otherwise, we have very little happiness, as though the chaos of bad thinking brings greater chaos to our lives. Why is this? I'm a bit reluctant to ask that question because I think in a way we have the answer. But yes, in a way, Gregory, we know, we think nobly, we think purely, we'll get the fruit of that, you know. But maybe people don't realize when they think ignobly, they don't realize actually the impact of that, because as we said, these are just a thought, not realizing that that thought can turn into something bigger than that. So my question would be, so is it really, I mean, yes, can it really affect our lives so much if we have, let's say, steer ourselves towards ignoble thoughts and ignoble, I'm hesitating to say evil and like that, but because I would say most people are not deliberately going into evil ways. They might at certain times do that, but mostly, you know, majority of us are not deliberately always doing evil. So Gregory, when we stray, let's say, towards ignoble thoughts, how can that sort of lead us so much into, let's say, chaos? I'm going to say it that way, into such a, how can it grow to such a level that it can turn into that terrible situation?
Well, first, one must understand the capacities that the human spirit has, the capacities of being able to attract, which attraction is based on his personal decision. Or, to put it in another sense, the ability to sow. When one carries out an activity or makes a decision, one is then bound to the path where the decision leads to. If one considers, even right here on earth, the love of smoking, the love of drugs, which drugs are then injected into the body stream. These one may classify as ignoble. At the same time, because that decision has been made, one follows that path. What then happens, unless there is a counter decision to move away from such, one is then bound to such an environment here on earth where people have needles and they inject themselves, and to such an extent that becomes unbelievable. Same thing happens when the human spirit, or where the soul has departed this earth, and in his decision decide to gravitate to places where it will enjoy to see many of those who, in quotes, smoke, or if his decision lies in seeing other people suffer. It will be dragged to that area because he himself has activated it towards such an environment where he will experience it in full. This is fair because as a man has sown, that is what he will reap. Whereas many a person who is striving after nobleness, take for instance, to be of help to others, he himself will be granted the opportunities. Just as he is in a position to help others, there are many others who are higher than him, who in turn will wish also to be of help to him. In such a way, that personality makes quick progress. Whereas the other personality who wishes for those things which are ignoble, the other personality who wishes to pursue paths where people's heads are being chopped off, that personality will be held down because we'll find that in higher realms, such things do not happen, but support is granted to the human spirit for self-improvement. It is the laws of creation through which we ourselves as human spirits have come into existence that regulates, that makes all these things possible. So if we desire very strongly in spirit and in body that which is noble, we should strive towards it. Striving towards it is an activity. It doesn't mean that there will be no challenges, but in overcoming these challenges, our volition becomes stronger. Our volition now is able to make decisions and not waste time. It should be borne in mind that the human spirit set out from its origin in the paradise of man. At that point of setting out, it was a human spirit germ and is granted the opportunity for a period to move out and experience way below where movement is slower. Therefore, it's not granted an eternity to experience in order to become self-conscious. Therefore, if the time granted to it comes, it either must have been self-conscious or it is not self-conscious. So if it has spent its time in ignoble deeds, then such deeds are not in accordance with the will that granted the opportunity. And therefore, it will be stripped of the wrong structures that now surrounds it. Being stripped of it means that the experiences it has gathered are not in accordance with the will of the giver of life. And therefore, it has to return back to its origin as a spirit seed germ. It means the time granted was a waste. It has wasted the opportunity which was granted it. Whereas, had it been striving in accordance with this will, it will be strong enough to enter paradise as a self-conscious human spirit in order to participate in the joys and the happiness that abounds there. This self-consciousness is key, and that is why the human spirit must make use of the opportunities that has been granted it for self-consciousness. So it's not a matter of, oh, I can at any time, all I need to do is change. Step by step, one is supposed to grow, just as you have a child growing step by step until it reaches adulthood. So one should not underestimate the seriousness of the opportunity that has been granted the human spirit for self-maturity. It may seem that the time is infinite, but that's not the case. Even 50 million years, one day it will come that it has expired. It could be 100 million years. What is necessary is for the striving human spirit to make haste to ennoble itself, which only means to use its intuition effectively so as to bring blessings which is able to perceive from the paradise of man even here on earth. Maybe one can now understand when Christ gave the Lord's Prayer, thy will be done on earth as it is done in heaven, which is only an avowal that the human spirit will strive to do its best to ensure the will which is done in heaven, in the paradise of man and in the higher realms, are implemented here on earth, such that happiness which abounds there will also abound here. And in fulfilling that vow, is also asked, give us this day. That means a particular day which is entering into. Give us the power, our daily bread. Give us the strength to implement that which we have vowed. So these things should be taken with utmost seriousness, not with calculations, but in simplicity.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for that, how can I say, comprehensive response and, really painting a big picture of what the situation, I don't like to use the word situation, really painting a big picture of, how to understand this activity of thoughts and, how we're meant to live. So thank you so much for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to have some information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic of the discussion for tonight is keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. I'll say it again. Keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. If you want to join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, the question I want to ask you next is...
Hold on.
Oh, Mena, you want to
yeah.
say something? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gregory gave a very clear clarification on how, the spirit has to, watch and pray. There are a lot of impressions. You have the five senses. They gather the impressions to which the spirit has to interpret, and it has to be active. Severe working on itself. To filter these impressions, to interpret these impressions, and to give feedback to the intellect on how to act in response to these impressions. I think it's very, very clear. But he can only give you a little of what he can interpret from the grail message. The grail message is for you, for the taking. You take it or leave it.
Yes, thank you for that. Gregory, yes, again, following on from what you said last, I've got a question which says, like my colleague has put this question. When Jesus Christ said, if your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out, what did he mean? So I'll just say it again. When Jesus Christ said, if your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out, what did he mean?
Again, thanks for that particular question. That is an expression. And like we keep discussing, when one comes across an expression, one should strive to know the motive behind it, which one now classify as the impression, the intuition behind it. So we have the eye being a form of sensing. It is the eye that transmits information, pictures, if one may say that. And since it referred to the inner man, the human spirit, if those pictures, which tend to belittle you and drag you down, if they come across to you, filter them and take them out. It doesn't mean, by meaning I'm talking of the intuition, that you are going to destroy your physical body. But it only means when one is watching, one is able to perceive intuitively that which could cause it to sin. And because one is in such an alert manner or mood, one is able to push it aside. That means you should be in a place where it will not make a decision that will bring it down, even visually. Of course, it is quite straightforward. For if one were to take it in a very intellectual and shallow manner, if your right eye causes you to sin and you pluck it out, if your mouth causes you to sin, what will you then do to it? before long, one will be dead. Of course, that is not what Christ meant at all. One should strive to understand what lies behind all the words that he has used, and one will see the gentle yet very severe way that he expressed himself. For he was referring to the Spirit, where we have the center of decision, for it is the Spirit that decides. It may be that when such impressions, which will cause or virtually cause the Spirit to do that which is wrong, once they arrive in the back brain and off to the Spirit is able to block it and say, I don't need this. A simple example may be given where you go to some place and you find so much warfare and causes you so much discomfort, and you say, look, I can't stand this. In such a case, you have decided you yourself do not wish to transmit such vivid, terrible picture back to the Spirit, for it already senses it is depressing. Depressing in the sense it brings you down. So all these expressions that we have heard, it is the task of each personality to bring it to life within himself or herself and to understand what Christ meant.
Okay. Can I ask a question, Gregory? Yeah, there's some religious practices, that require this membership of certain parts of the body because of certain sins that have been perpetrated, due to these parts of the body being involved, like amputations and all that. And sometimes your eyes are plucked out, literally. And that is in one. How do you interpret those actions? And then secondly, when people are born, with deformities, yeah, there are occasions where people are born blind, or people are born without some parts of the body. How do you interpret that? Are they not? Is what law is being taken is operational in such a situation? I don't know. Is that clear?
May I ask what the first question was?
Yeah, the first one was, where certain religious practices, they actually prescribe, this membership of certain parts of the body due to, the fact that, they have committed, they've used this part of the body to commit one crime or the other. What do you say about that?
Well, it is not what I personally has to say. What we do in this forum is to strive to understand as best as we could, using the laws of creation or the divine laws, of which the work in the light of truth will be of great help. That is what counts. For when one is referring to these laws of creation, these laws apply or should also apply here on earth and in different realms. If, however, a group decide to come together and interpret in a literal manner that which they still do not understand intuitively, then the guilt is theirs. For it is said, he who makes no effort to grasp the word of the Lord aright burdens himself with guilt. To grasp the word of the Lord aright is to grasp it intuitively. So, if on one hand, many a religious practice decide to inflict punishment on the physical body, which physical body is necessary for experience, they have now transgressed the laws of creation in such a way that they themselves will have to experience the consequences of their actions, of their activities, here or hereafter. So it is not a matter of limited understanding or saying this is what we do. It is the laws of creation or the laws of creation, the laws of nature or the divine laws. These are the laws that maintain order, not people in their limited intellectual understanding decide to inflict such punishment on many a person. Where lies reformation if you have to destroy? These are the questions they should ask themselves. On the second question, many a person is born blind and some with deformities. You yourself have just mentioned that there are religious people who decide to inflict such harsh punishment on the physical body. They themselves have sown, and in accordance with the inflexible laws of nature, they will have to reap where they have sown. And therefore, if they now have to come back and experience on it, in depriving others of the opportunity to use their physical eyes, it was they themselves who have created this scenario which they have to now experience. Perfect are these laws that have been woven into creation, such that what does not belong to you will not come to you. So, if man has sown a seed, that seed he or she must reap. But even in that, it is the opportunity granted out for the human spirit to recognize where it has fallen, where it has interpreted things wrongly, so as to experience it upon itself and then improve upon itself and move further. But there are other cases where many a person might decide, although it has not got any karma to redeem, to take on a particular scenario in order to experience so as to bring relief to many others. And that is how you find those who may be blind are able to experience and at the same time bring some form of touch, things like the braille, where people are able to read, even to some extent write, even if they are blind. But these scenarios are so manifold that it calls for deep reflection of the human spirit to see the history of how a particular activities was initiated.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your reply there.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think we basically come to the end of our show now, so we won't go ask any more question. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Well, I can only repeat, keep the heart of your thoughts pure and never forget the meaning. Watch and pray.
Thank you for that. And Mena, anything you would like to say goodbye?
Yeah, I think the references have been made. Go to the grail message. That's all there is to tell you.
Okay, thank you.
To show you.
So thank you, listeners, for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. I think it was quite interesting. And of course, we'll be back next Tuesday with another topic, which I will find out then. 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. as usual. Yes, I wish you a great week and God bless. And Brother Siom is next. He'll be joining us in a few minutes. You can stay on for him. Please, we'll welcome him soon. All the best, everybody. Take care.